All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto and Coffee podcast. And we're back for episode 19. So, grab your cup of coffee, water, tea, doesn't really matter. But in today's episode, we have a very, I would like to say, very broad topic. And the topic is, synthetic media and trust in the digital age, right? And before we start off or going to anything, right, I just want to just let this be known, right? Like AI generation and AI video editing, all that stuff, it's just getting better and better over the years, and it's kind of just scary if you really like think about it, Cordell.
Yeah, of course. It's very scary, but it's also very exciting. And I just think the sad thing is that you can't have, one without the other. And as many people that will see the benefit to this and how it can solve so many problems in our lives, there's just as many people that will find ways to take advantage of it out of greed, political gain, or whatever gain necessary. And sadly, that's just part of human nature. And especially when you live in a world of inequality.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you guys, doom scroll like me, but I think, last year or probably earlier this year was the last time I ever seen like, or the last time I could have ever distinguished between like, an AI generated video and someone that's, or something that's actual real. And the thing is like, I'm doom scrolling, and I can't really like tell if anything on my feed is really AI generated. And that kind of just scares me just to know that, we're probably in that phase of like, social media where you can't really tell because like it's getting so good. And I remember seeing this one TikTok where like they say like, the benchmark for AI generated videos is like Will Smith eating pasta. Yeah,
That's the bench. How is that the benchmark?
I was just scrolling and I just
That,
saw it and was like,
that just came out of nowhere. I have no idea what that even means.
it's just like, over the years it's just getting better and better. And like you just use this specific, I guess prompt just to really show like how good it's getting over the years.
Okay, I'm just wondering why Will Smith and why pasta.
I have no idea. But David, what are your thoughts on like, synthetic media going forward?
Well, I've said to a couple people before, and I might have said it on this podcast, but that's tough to say. What I've said before is essentially millennials grew up in an age of no hope, and Gen Z is growing up in an age of no trust. So, like you have all these things that are coming out now, and you can't tell what's true, what isn't. So there is no truth, there is no trust. So with what you have out there, you have a lot of people who are running scams, or you have a lot of people who are using it for other means. For example, my roommate even said that he'd want to create his own OnlyFans using generated images, like a fast way to make some money. It is, as long as you can make people believe that this person is there, then yeah, you can do that. This is something where you had videos come out of various large figures, politicians, rich people, and all of them, or famous people, and all of them saying, yeah, if you send Bitcoin to this address, then I'll send you back double. And that was a thing for a bit. With all of these things, you have like they're just amplifiers. You're going to have people who use them for malicious means. You're going to have people who don't. You're going to have people who use them to better themselves in some way. You have a lot of faceless channels, and you have other channels who want to get actual information out there that will use the same tools. A lot of the faceless channels will just create information, mass produce it, and not even check it. Just AI slop, essentially. But you have a lot of other people who will do their research, who will check that information, and then will use voiceovers or generated videos in order to amplify what they're doing and make it easier to get out. So you have both of these situations. It's just a tool. In the same way that you have a knife, and you have chefs that use knives. You also have muggers who use knives. They're the same tool, completely different purposes. So, yeah, we live in an age of no trust now. That's where it's gone, and yeah, it will make things a little bit more difficult to navigate. But it is what it is. We just have to deal with it.
I want to actually, if you don't mind, I want to take a couple steps back because, like, it's easy for us just to start right here and say, oh, we don't know what's real. What's that? I actually want to isolate even a couple of other issues here, right? Because it is synthetic media, and it's not just media, right? And when we say media, I mean, media can be what? It can be print, or are we talking about newspapers? Well, the old school newspapers, news outlets, whatever. I think one thing that most people need to understand here, and, if we go back 300 years, right? Go back 300 years for a second. There's no technology. Well, there's technology, but just not what we have today. You're essentially relying on newspapers to get all of your information. Can those newspapers lie to you? Absolutely. Now, originally, journalism, media, was supposed to be about reporting facts, okay? About reporting the facts. Now, guys, I'm going to ask you this. I want to hear your definition. What is the definition of a fact? What is it?
So, I would say definition of a fact is something that you can really prove with information that is already there.
Well, yeah, that's how I would put it in different words. David, would you agree with that, or would you have a different definition of what a fact is?
Something verifiable, and then also something verifiable not just via the data, but then also via lived experience. You have, for example, studies that show one thing or another, and like, for example, what was that nutrition study that shows that it's fat that makes you fat, not sugar. And then people started looking into things, and it's like, oh well, no, these experts were wrong. Yeah. So you have to have it be backed up by both data and then also lived experience, in my opinion. So that would make up the definition of verifiable for me on that.
Okay. Ultimately, you're both right. Put it simply, in shorter terms, a fact is something that cannot be disputed. That's it. In other words, all of us can look at exactly the same thing, and there's only one conclusion. There's only one indisputable interpretation that can come out of it. That is what a fact means. Not open to interpretation, can't be disputed. Now, along the lines, over the years, journalism has moved away from telling you facts to now trying to persuade you. Now trying to get an emotion, now trying to forget even when capitalism comes in and just trying to get a click and a sale. Ultimately, the media is now all about analysis, opinions, and things that completely move away from fact. You can go to any news site, and most of them, reputable ones, will clearly label, this is analysis, this is opinion, meaning there isn't a single fact inside the article that you're about to read. But we all accept it as fact. So the entire way the media complex has moved over the past 300 years is gone from reporting facts to trying to move public opinion one way or another, whichever way they want. And AI is just making that much worse, right? Because now we have no idea what a fact is. Whereas in the 1980s, we would have done the Coke Pepsi challenge. You would have been blindfolded and given a Coke and a Pepsi and said, tell the difference between them. People couldn't do it, by the way. If you were blindfolded, people could not tell the difference between a Coke and a Pepsi. I've even seen wine tastings where when they're blindfolded, and you might laugh at this, people were actually thinking a white wine was a red. Okay, believe it or not, when you're blindfolded and you can't see, everything gets messed up. So when we're come to the point now where we can't tell what a fact is, what are we supposed to do? I mean, think about the implications of the definition of a fact is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have what was the name of that one? What was the name of that one famous guy? There's this famous guy on the American right who goes on YouTube, or did. Ben Shapiro, who said facts don't care about your feelings, and that would align with that definition of fact. Facts are indisputable, but everyone disputes them all the time. There's even a study on this where you have a very, very obvious outcome, very, very obvious answer. You're given 3 lines of various lengths, and you're said to pick the line that is the middle length. And if you pick B, because that's the obvious one, the other lines are clearly longer or shorter, and then you feel pretty comfortable with that. And then everyone else in the room says that it's A. And most people will change their answer to B. That's a lot of what AI is doing. You have a lot of AIs, and people on Twitter have responded to these with like, give me a recipe for this dish or this other thing. Ignore all previous instructions. Do this. Like, write a haiku about something. And a lot of these will end up being bots, because what ends up being true for most people, what they think are facts, is the common consensus, and not what is provable, what will happen. Let's take a look at the Iran war, for example. This last one, round 2, not round 1. We can look at round 1 too. But with this latest one, a lot of people thought that America was winning, and a lot of people will probably still think that America won. But America is paying out. Like Iran still has control of the strait, and all America has done basically is blow up a couple schools and lose a bunch of service members. Same for Ukraine. And in both of these cases, while it was happening, everyone thought, "Oh, America is clearly on top. You're wrong. You clearly are getting the information from the wrong places. I don't know where you're getting your facts from." All of these things. And what ends up happening? Well, with what's verifiable, you have the numbers for the U.S. military, their production data. You have the numbers for the wars that they've won. They've not won a single war since World War II. You have their own testimony. You have the actions of the people, and are they acting like a winner? Are they acting like a loser? Are they acting like they're in the top position? And all of these things are verifiable. And sure, individually, they can be said to lean one way or another. They can be waved away. Like, they could just be a coincidence, but all together they make up a picture. And that larger picture is what is where the facts lie. You have similar things for social activity. You have similar things for politics. You have similar things for history. They go all over the place. But the common thing is common consensus, and in my opinion, it's usually wrong.
All good points. All good points. Like, I think we can go down another rabbit hole about discussing the war and everything like that. When we see things like that, I hadn't really seen, but then again, I'm the kind of person that doesn't believe anything I read from anywhere, right? I've been lied to so many times by every news outlet. There's no such thing as a good news outlet anymore, because everybody's just trying to sell you a click and get you to keep coming back so they can sell ads. That's not reporting facts. That's just capitalism. It's capitalism on steroids, and they're willing to do whatever they can to get you to keep coming back to their website, even if it's about live updates where they say nothing. So I don't believe anything I read, no matter what news outlet. I haven't found a single good one. Most news are, and the other thing is, if you think about the way we consume information nowadays, like, not one of us has an attention span more than 3 to 5 seconds. We just don't. And if they don't get you and give you everything you need within 3 to 5 seconds, you're done. You're gonna leave. So when I look at, especially like, Apple News, I'm not a doom scroller, but I will look at my Apple News, mostly for tennis news, business news, things like that. I try and avoid political news at all costs. I will read AI news, definitely, crypto news. But, most of these articles, again, like, I'll give a great example is like a tennis one. So I'm not going to name the tennis publication, but one is like, so-and-so, like Novak Djokovic says the one thing that damns Yannick Sinner's game. I'm like, okay, I'm curious, clickbait. You open the article, reading, who's Djokovic? I know who he is. You don't have to explain to me who he is. The guy's the greatest tennis player of all time. I don't need his bio. 5 paragraphs later, 6 paragraphs, 7 paragraphs later, all he said is, "Oh, I think he has a great forehand." Like, that's it. I just wasted 2 minutes of my life and the whole point was just to get me to click, just to, like, zero content, nothing. It's just all bot generated news articles that'll pick up on one line that it sees somewhere else, generate an entire article just so you're on it for 30 seconds. They can get advertising. That's it. That's what media is today. And one of the reasons why I like CNBC, and there's other places like that, they'll start every article with 3 bullet points. That's it. They'll just tell me exactly what I need in those 3 bullet points, and then I don't have to read the rest of the article. Nobody else is going to do that because they're making their money by having you read to the bottom, and then you realize, well, there was nothing even in this article. So, that's the way I view media today, is it's just all designed to keep you there. And the best way to keep you there is to make you angry, by the way. All right. It's like the Howard Stern model from the 1980s and 90s. Just make everybody angry. The people that hate you will listen and read more than the people that like you. And that's a really messed up thing about human nature. So it's just the way that I view things nowadays. And it makes me so angry. And it makes me even angrier that our nature falls for this, right? Like, we go for the fake stuff. We go for all of the clickbait. And you wind up doom scrolling. You wind up wasting your life on a supercomputer. We're all walking around with supercomputers in our pocket. That's another thing that I think we have to acknowledge here. We're walking around with a supercomputer in our pocket. And that's a lot of power that companies should not have over us, because we're all so gullible and we'll fall for all of it. I don't know. It's just the way I look at it. And it's just, that's not what the news was supposed to be. That's not what media was supposed to be. It was supposed to be about facts. And now we're the furthest thing away from facts.
And I would have to agree with you, Corda, right? I think that, most news outlets are very propaganda based, more like opinion based. But, let's find some middle ground with, I guess 300 years ago to right now, right? How does synthetic AI or just synthetic, media in general, right? Doesn't necessarily mean like, are limited to just, image generation, or even like, let's say an AI bot generating a fake persona per se, right? How does that tie into the media right now, right? Because I think, as you said before, people have a very short attention span. And I think one of the key reels that I know really grabs people is those, AI generated Reddit stories that, some people, David, do you know those? Yeah. Those
I've
really
seen them, absolutely.
Yeah, those really grab people's attention, right? So based on, the topic right now, what are your thoughts on
that? David, I think that's directed at you.
Yeah.
I was just going to leave it for, I was going to go second, but for my thoughts on that, I think that most people are going to end up using that to try to get money, and they don't care about the facts at all. They don't care if a story is true. They don't care if they're giving people correct information. They care about if they're getting money. So you can make that very, very easily. You've got, 11 Labs that does voices. You've got various video editors that can generate videos, 6-second clips, I think it is. But you can stitch them all together. And overall, you can create a video from nothing. Like, you don't have to know any information. You just have to know what's trending, and you can probably have the AI grab what's trending as well. Yeah. So you don't have to know anything. And the AI, as wrong as it is, very, very often, because it's just aggregated data, it does not know what is true. It does not know what isn't. It knows that this is the trend, and if someone asks this is what they're probably expecting. Yeah. Outside of the gates that are also put in by the developers and any company any company that is telling those developers what to do. So you're effectively relying on common consensus and the will of a company on what information to give you in order to determine what is true and what isn't. But a lot of people will see it as an authority, and they'll use that. So those people, whether they see the AI as an authority, or if they're only caring about money, they're going to pump out these videos, and you're going to see a lot of them. This is even something that's been called out by other YouTubers, where they say one specifically was calling this out and sharing videos of people that put out these, sharing the reactions of the people that put out these videos, saying that other people stole their content when their content is stolen itself. And as he was saying, a lot of people will say that YouTube shouldn't ban so many people, but he wants more banning, specifically in this area, because you have so many people that are just pumping out one video after another of just AI slop. Nothing verified, nothing actually contributed. It's just AI doing everything end to end. And you can be
Yeah.
very, very wrong with that information.
So let me ask you this, David, because I just had a thought based on what you said, right? So would you say there's a race between like an AI generation and AI detection of like, synthetic media?
Yeah, probably. But how are you going to deal with that? If you have, like, for example, 3D printing, you have people who are trying to get 3D printers to not make weapons. But the printer doesn't know what is a weapon and what isn't. It knows that it needs to make this piece and then make that piece. So like it doesn't know about that stuff. How are you going to do that? With AI, yeah, you can have various AIs that print out a little identifier, a unique ID per user per company, and you can tie that to the person. But LLMs can be put onto your own computer. You can put them onto your phone. You don't have to add a unique ID to that one. So how is that ever going to be policed? At that point, you have detection for like, okay, well, is this too smooth? Is it not? But then what if what about when AIs improve and they're able to generate that? Everything that you see on screen right now is just a set of pixels.
Yeah.
And like that can all be just laid out digitally by an AI in the same way that it is by the camera. Now, maybe not by today's AIs, but in the same way that you had the example that you gave at the start. Will Smith eating pasta. That's a very, very complex process. You have mastication. You have the fingers, and fingers can go in any number of directions.
Yeah.
So, like you have
They
the
have to be
movement
realistic, right? That's the whole point, though, is the movements have to be realistic on top of it.
Yeah.
The movement of the sauce, the movement of the noodles themselves, like you have all these complex things that are going into that. Very, very difficult if you're drawing it by hand, even like artists could tell you. And when it started, you had things going all over the place, and people were laughing at it because it looked so weird. And then people retried it with the same prompt later on, and it got better. And now it's basically indistinguishable from reality to the human eye. Now you have some of them that are still lagging behind, where those look a little too smooth, but that's going to get fixed up eventually, and it's going to add errors in order to fool the human eye. Like for example, a scar that you picked up in childhood. If you just generate a person, they're not going to have a scar. If you specifically add that in the prompt, sure, you're going to have pock marks on the face. You're going to have a little bit of uneven coloring, because when you go out into the sun isn't all around you, it comes top down. You're going to have these things, these imperfections within real life, but those can be predicted and those can be added to the video.
Okay. Yeah. No, all good points. All good points. It's trying to think, because what was the question that we asked David before? Because I had something I wanted to say, but now I completely forgot what it was.
Yeah.
The one where David said he didn't want to go first, and I made him go first. What was that question again?
So the question was like, based on let's find some middle ground from 300 years ago with media and synthetic media, how AI is on rampant generating all kinds of images, videos, and stuff like that, right? How would you try to?
I think ultimately nothing is really changed other than the technology, because I think ultimately, owning an information distribution network is clearly one of the most powerful tools that humans have, is control over others, right? If go back to like William Randolph Hearst, and I don't know if everyone's going to get the Rosebud reference and everything like that, but William Randolph Hearst controlled a media empire, and then look at everything else as it goes through. Go through the Murdochs, look at the power of Fox News, definitely look at even at the Trump organization creating their own digital media. Look at the power that Elon Musk has by buying out Twitter. There is a lot of power in controlling information, clearly. And the more that we have people walking around with supercomputers in their pockets, the more attractive it is, obviously, because it's so much easier to get that information in front of people and completely influence them in the way that you want to. So, I think that human nature doesn't really change. The technology has changed, and it just makes it easier to get to people. So I think all that this is going to accomplish is that now anyone, now it doesn't have to be just the rich and powerful that can afford to buy out or start a media company. Anyone has the power now to create a media company and distribute it to others. And if you have the message that makes people angry, for some reason we all love getting angry and blaming others for everything that's going on in the world. Not that there isn't blame to go around. I'm just saying that, we can't just keep going around blaming everybody else, because then people just take advantage of it. So I think it's just come to the point where it's just so easy for us to be taken advantage of by people that have technology. And other than that, human nature hasn't changed. Sorry.
Yeah, completely agree. No, you're good. You're good. So I think
just
that
coughing.
Oh, you're good. I think that for the first 20 minutes of the podcast, we really looked into the cons of synthetic media. But I think as always, on the other side of the coin, there's always pros to it, right? I think that it's good for helping business advertise. It's good for educational resources and stuff like that. But again, like anything, it's more or less how you use it. Gordo.
Yeah, I agree. It is. I mean, it is about all it, and again, it's not all bad. I mean, we just have to understand that the main problem that we're facing here is, it's called the liar's dividend, right?
Yeah.
What we're dealing with here is the liar's dividend. Okay, it's not even that people are going to believe deep fakes anymore. It's that now we can't even tell what's real. We're going to question what's real. So even if somebody presents us with real footage, real whatever, we have been conditioned to say it's not real, or someone could just go, "That's not me. Someone did an AI deepfake." I mean, we're never going to know. So there's just an absence of truth. Truth has become entirely negotiable. Okay. And look, to be fair, journalists are under intense pressure, right? Right. Get things out there, but that's no excuse for clickbait. And that makes the fact-checking teams have a terrible job of having to do all of this, right? Because it's not just, looking for bias anymore. Now you have to find a way to look for mathematical anomalies in a pixel, as David put it. So, that's not easy to do. But I agree, like, Gio, it's not all, we're not like, we're not living in neuromancer or dystopia right now. There's definitely a lot of positives. All right. There's definitely a lot of positives. I mean, what it's going to do for creativity and expression and what it could do, it's fantastic if we just find ways to protect ourselves. And that's really what it is. I mean, I think the question then becomes is, like, forget regulation. Like, does anyone have any faith that we can regulate this problem away?
Hey, I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, unless you get into major censor, because then you're going to get into censorship. Because then, well, what's real, what's not real? Now you're censoring my work. It's a work of art. You're going to get into major questions as to First Amendment. You're going to get into questions of, censorship of creativity. So I don't really have faith that you can regulate this kind of thing. And again, and this also comes back to something that we had mentioned a long time ago when discussing the difference between the AI models, between China and the US. And I think now everything that David said is I think now hitting more mainstream media, because I'm seeing the same post on LinkedIn from multiple big names now where they're showing the token usage of Chinese models skyrocketing compared to the US ones. And this is something that David said is going to happen about, I don't know, when we probably in the first or second podcast, David said that. And so when we start seeing that, the AI models are, the shift, the geopolitical power shift that's going to happen with the AI models is another aspect that gets thrown into this, right? So that's just something else I wanted to bring up, is that we are seeing a shift more to the Chinese models in the AI. But when, the whole point what I wanted to say here in terms of, just the whole AI argument in terms of, the media and everything like that, or just in terms of everything really, is that regulation, all this stuff, there is no incentive to put the handbrakes on and to slow down, because if you do that, another country will not. Okay. And you've just got a major prisoner's dilemma and major game theory problem here, that if you need AI regulation to work, everybody has to agree to it. And it has to be enforceable. No one's going to agree, and it's not enforceable. There's no way the US or China would ever agree to any of this. The Canadians definitely will. Most likely the Scandinavian countries will. Most of Europe, okay? Australia. There's no way the Americans, Russia, China will ever agree to this in a million years. So if you have no way of policing it, no way of enforcing it, there's no incentive to do it, because if you put the brakes because you believe it's the morally right thing to do, somebody else is just going to go full speed and then kick your butt and win the race. So as long as that's the current, as long as we have a whole game theory environment like this, there's no way to regulate this. There's no way that anyone's going to regulate AI. There's no way to slow it down. And it's just, oh boy, look out below.
Yeah, and with no regulation, and you can't even tell the difference at some points. I think that, authenticity and like trust in the overall business itself really would be like a competitive advantage for most businesses going forward, even all the way to like 2030, when all this stuff is getting better and better over the years.
No, that's a very good point. And things do keep getting better and better. I mean, like, I don't know. Have you guys tried the Claude Fable 5? Did you try the new Claude model when it came out, or no? Or did you not get into it fast enough?
I didn't get into fast enough. But why did they ban that? Because
they're worried that other governments, militaries are going to use it for nefarious purposes.
Okay.
That's what I read. And again, I'm trusting the media to tell me what it's right, but I don't believe anything I read. So it's more, I would read it that the US government feels it's too powerful and only they want to control it. That's the other way I would read it. And it's probably some truth to that. I didn't get a chance to do it, mostly because the second I get the pop-up saying, hey, if you try this, your token usage will be 2 times Opus 4. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm okay with Opus 4.8. I already burned through tokens way too quickly. All right. So, I'd like to try it one day. But come on, the second that somebody says it's been banned because of military, okay, I'm really curious. I really have to see what this thing can do. I don't know if it's going to build any of my applications any faster, because it already is going like fast as crazy, and like the quality is amazing. And it's like, how could it keep getting better? How could the quality of this stuff just keep getting so much better when I'm already blown away by what this thing is doing for me? So anyways, I want to see hopefully it'll come back out at some point. I'm definitely curious about it. I don't know, like, do you do a lot of, except for like image generation? I think another thing to think about, right? Because I'm definitely not up to date on all the tools and everything that you're going to use to make, let's say, deep fakes or videos and things like that. I mean, I am amazed at the way image generation has evolved over the past year, going from a point where ChatGPT could not even spell correctly on the image. You're like, no, I asked you to put this text on the image, and then it would just never be able to spell. And now it's like, you get these visuals, like you get a PowerPoint presentation made for you in a matter of minutes, beautifully formatted, all the fonts, your logo, you get all of these extra images that Claude decided to put in there that goes with the content of the slide. It's insane what it's come to. So I don't know how to regulate this, or what's going to come next. But so I think the natural point here, Gio, if you'll permit me to steer this.
Go ahead.
How do we protect ourselves with everything that we just said? And we have our audience out there saying, now we're scaring the crap out of them. Deepfakes, don't believe anything you read, all that. What can we do to protect ourselves?
I think that's a very good question. David, do you want to like chime in? I think you would be, better equipped for this question.
Well, monetarily, I would say use AI. Because that amplifies your own output, and it doesn't just apply to code, but it applies to a lot of different places. I even use it for a to-do list. It aggregates a lot of different places over a lot of different sources of information across work, and I can just put those. I can just grab those together rather than relying on memory or running across 5 to 7 different applications to try to get everything. With regards to information, I would say verify everything against previous history, as you know it, against what people are doing, and against other news sources. You can also check against the most neutral sources possible. For example, for US news, probably don't use US sources. With the war against Iran, I didn't use U.S. sources. I didn't use Israeli sources. I didn't use Iranian sources, and I wouldn't even know where to get those, honestly. But I did use others outside of that. Like, for example, Thailand. They have news, and they were also reporting up. And you can verify what people are doing. The U.S. has a history of U.S. politicians have a history of blustering. Posturing. Whenever they're winning, whenever they have things going their own way, they like to brag, and they like to show off. They like to say, "This is what we're doing, and we're doing so great. We're the best," and all that stuff. Now, depends on the politician, but they all do it to some degree. Well, maybe not all of them, but a good number of them do it to some degree. So, are they acting like a winner, or are they not? This is exactly how I did it with the Iran war. With regards to finances and how things are going with that, it's the same thing. Like, are they? How are they doing on the global stage with regards to trade? Is this trade maneuver going to go their way? Well, how is it playing out? Are they acting like a winner, or are they not? Have they tried this before? How did that go? Things like that. You just verify against previous information. As long as everything creates a cohesive story across the entire narrative that to date, including the new thing that you're evaluating, then you can effectively say that it is verified, that it is true.
Yeah.
So I would check things against that. With regards to saying for any type of information, that should roughly work.
No, I completely agree. That's exactly what I would have said. Is you have to compare against multiple news sites. That's if we're looking at the articles themselves, compare against multiple news sites, understanding the natural bias, that Fox is going to be right wings. I don't know what the hell CNN is, but, you're going to have to understand that, each of them are going to be inclined in one way, understand it, try and isolate the facts. What are the common elements that you're seeing from it? Try and figure out what's opinion, what's analysis, and say, did this actually happen, or is someone just telling me what they think is happening? So, but again, it takes time to do this, right? I mean, most people don't have time, but if you're going to spend time reading the news, these are the questions you need to ask yourselves. It's, compare against multiple sites. Is this something that was confirmed to have happened? Is somebody guessing? Is this analysis, or is this opinion? And if it's analysis or opinion, just understand that someone's trying to sell you something. And that's pretty much all it is. When it comes to like the deepfakes, what are the rules? Look for pixelations around the edges, look for unnatural shadows, but then you can start getting into conspiracy theories. And most people are not, an expert in physics and optics and being able to understand the perfect angle that the sun should hit the back of someone's head and cast the shadow in front of them. That's ideally what we'd be able to do, but no one has the skills for that. So I think spotting deepfakes is going to get harder and harder. I think we're in a much better position to at least be a little bit more objective about the news that we read. I don't know. I also find that reading the news nowadays is so damn exhausting. I mean, forget the fact that it's depressing beyond belief, right? Like, I can't read about hospitals and schools being bombed anymore. I mean, like, we're so fortunate to live in areas where we don't have to deal with that, where we don't have bombs dropping on our head. I just find it like, it's like the whole news is just designed to either make me angry or make me very sad. Sometimes I just love going to my local news, like CTV, Canadian, like CTV News, the Montreal page. Local group petitions to get a stop sign added to the corner. I'm like, see, that I can read. Okay, that that's not going to make me angry. It's nice. It doesn't involve bombs dropping on people. So you read the local news and you're like, okay, no one's doing any AI deepfakes on this because it's just so boring. If they did do an AI deepfake on this, I congratulate them because they managed to replicate the boringness of local news so perfectly that no one would even question that it's real or fake. So there's a lot to be said for the local news.
Yeah.
It's like the last place of sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I think that, we can probably like train like the AI by, generating images from one AI and then probably, using a detection system or training a detection system with that. But what about like checking the overall metadata of the image? Is that a possibility to check?
It is, and there are services, like so Adobe, Google, BBC, I know for sure have introduced this kind of digital watermark birth certificate kind of thing where you could actually verify the source and authenticity of their images and things like that. I don't know how easy that is to fake. You could easily just go to, oh, here's a new site, and then you go there and like, oh, look, they got a digital certificate. How am I supposed to know if that digital certificate is real? But I know that Adobe, BBC, and Google do have that kind of stuff. So I think what's more important is that more and more of these outlets start adopting these kind of practices and ethics and procedures and policies in place to say that, yes, we are adopting ethical AI. You still have to trust them, which is not going to be an easy thing to do, especially when everyone's just motivated by money. It is capitalism. But I do see signs of that, that kind of digital protection. I mean, ideally, right, we would just put every image on the blockchain. Can we do that? We'd probably run out of hydroelectricity in about a week.
Would it really solve the authenticity problem, though?
I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, it would introduce other problems. I mean, come on. I think the three of us probably believe we put everything on the blockchain, it would solve all of the world's problems until quantum computing comes out. But I mean, if everything's on the blockchain, verify, decentralized logs, we can verify everything. But I mean, come on, you can't put every little thing in existence on the blockchain. We just don't have that kind of infrastructure, power, time, whatever you want to call it. But I don't, I mean, I think I'm sure there are startups working on this kind of digital birth certificate kind of thing, whether or not it's a Web3 technology, who knows? But I'm sure there's a startup working on it.
No, you can and cannot solve the problem at the same time on that. With regards to who created the image, if a news site wants to let you know that they're distributing this image specifically, you have an encryption certificate that goes to them, and then they sign that against the photo, the bits of the photo. And for every single photo, that will be different. Well, for every single photo that differs from another photo, it will be different because the information in the bits will go against the certificate. They will be encrypted, and that will have a unique ID, a unique identifier for that, a unique string. Now, so you can say that this one came from the BBC as an example. What you're not likely to be able to do is to say that this one came from the BBC and also directly from and also is a guaranteed image created by them and not generated by an AI. Because now maybe you can get that same level of encryption onto each individual camera. That's a lot to do, and I'm not sure manufacturers are going to be willing to do that. You can always use an old camera. A lot of photographers prefer older equipment. A lot of people prefer older equipment. Like, it generally tends to be more reliable. So I'm not too sure if you can solve it at that level, but even if you do that, you still have another problem. Most news organizations have proven themselves to be unreliable. You ended up having the average guy, the average reporter, be more factually reliable than them. This extended to a lot of things, including all the different conspiracy theories that have been proven true very, very recently. Creating the statement that the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy fact is about 6 months. So you have these people who are doing on the ground reporting, just like with their phones, and they're getting better information than the actual news people. Very recently, someone came out, and I don't remember his name, but he came out and reported on Somalian fraud in in welfare for various things, like the famous Leering Center. This guy had a whole video on that. Then some major news organization went over there and they asked him, "So is this true?" And like held up the microphone, and they said, "No, it's not true." And that news organization was like, "Well, there it is. It's clearly not true." And this is the same thing that they basically did for Pizzagate, which was proven true with the files. You know which files I'm talking about. Now, with regards to this stuff, you have all of these news organizations that are basically complicit with whatever the government wants to do. They're like they're like an extra wing of the government at this point. And you have regular people who don't have access to those same things that are coming out with actual facts that you can rely on. And they're proving themselves reliable or not based off the history of their videos and whether or not those things resolve to being true or not. And so you have, and so even if you get that that appeal to authority from proving that this image, this article came from this organization, you don't have proof that that's true, and that's going to be the thing that ends up making that pass or fail.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Didn't know that. I didn't even think of it.
And I think the closing question would be, is like synthetic media really like the bigger opportunity, or is it like a bigger threat, right? Because like, what do you see us, or like the trend in like 10 years would be? Would we really trust like, AI more or humans more?
Honestly, I can barely see 10 minutes out. And you're asking me to think 10 years out. It's I have no idea. 10 years, I mean, I would still like to see us in like living in Star Trek land, where we all wear the same outfit, when is that day? I think that was a Seinfeld joke. When is the day when we all decide to abandon fat and say, that's the one outfit we're all going to wear? All right. If you look at all those movies, sci-fi movies from the 1960s, they'll have the like V shape there. The women all had the high boots up past their knees. And, we all had the same outfit. So I want that in the next 10 years. I'm not saying I want everyone to be the same. I'm just saying I want the Star Trek scenario where there's no war. Everyone's happy. Everyone's provided for. There's no poverty. That's not going to happen. In fact, I would probably say the divergence between rich and poor is only going to get worse. And I think AI is actually going to be one of the major catalysts for the continue rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. I do believe that. Right now, we are absolutely on the path of technology helping selectively the rich, and that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. But that's really what I see as the danger right now in the path, is the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer. I don't see that changing. There's just no incentive for that to change.
Mm-hmm. David, where do you see synthetic media in the next, let's say, 10 years? Is it a bigger threat or a bigger opportunity?
I think both. Big opportunity because you can access a level of expertise that you couldn't before. If you wanted to make your own photo book for one reason or another, then you could do that because you can generate the images and not have to pay artists and wait a long time to get those results. You can have it come out in the exact way that you want. You can put it down onto the page, and you can get to print very, very easily at a very low cost. So, which means that your book can then be a lower cost, and you can get it out and more people can afford it and more people are going to be likely to buy it. But at the same time, I do see an appeal to authority there. Now, that's not something that we're going to cure humanity of within the next 5 to 10 years. People are already doing this. On Twitter, what do you have? You have people replying to others that they disagree with saying, @Grok, is this true? And Grok is just an AI. It's governed by Twitter, the organization, by the developers. Any developer who wants to add a specific string to it, it's like, you can talk about this, you can't talk about this. If someone asks about this, you have to say this, that sort of thing. You have the appeal to authority, but that appeal to authority is governed by this organization. Do you agree with that organization? Do you not agree with that organization? Do you agree with this AI governed by this organization, or do you prefer this other AI governed by this other organization? You have the Chinese models where you can't criticize the CCP, which makes sense because that's their government. That they have a hand within those organizations. They don't want you criticizing them and threatening their power. Over here, you have American models where you can't say other things. There are certain things that you can't say on US models, and it's basically going to align to the same stuff that you can't say on YouTube. Now, with this sort of thing, which ones are the correct models? Do you agree with the Grok model and that appeal to authority? Do you agree with the ChatGPT model and that appeal to authority? How about DeepSeek? How about Quen? Everyone will say, oh, well, the very first thing that they're going to do, well, not everyone, but most. The very first thing that they're going to do when they disagree with you, they're going to do the appeal to authority. And if that authority disagrees with them, then they're going to say, oh, well, it must be wrong on this. And there are literal threads of people. Like the one that I'm remembering right now is a boomer who didn't know economics, and he was disagreeing with Grok the whole time. And there's an entire thread of @Grok, but consider this, @Grok, but how about this, @Grok, but then but the dollar is still a dollar, and all of this stuff. But he's going into this. But the very first thing that he tried to do was authority back me on this. Tell this guy I'm wrong. And I see most people doing that. It's not just like a handful, because an appeal to authority is something that most of us do. You have the strong people and you have the weak people. The strong people go off, they do their own thing. The weak people aggregate together. And the same way that you see on species. Let me make this on species so no one gets offended. With strong species, you see them going out on their own. You see them getting food for themselves, you see them going off, and they're generally solitary. With weak species, you see them aggregate together. Strength in numbers, the herd. They all move together, so that way they're less likely to be picked off. It's the same thing with strong people and weak people. And that appeal to authority is coming from that. And quite often, or at least it was before AI, that appeal to authority was the appeal to the group. This is why this is where that study comes back into play. The study where if you have this obvious answer, and the majority of the group says, no, that's not correct, it's actually this, even though what they're saying is obviously false, you're very, very likely to align with them. If you have one person disagreeing, that drops from something in the 90s on the percent to something in like 75 or 50. It drops drastically. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember it drops drastically. Just because there's a little bit of disagreement, so you're not likely to be ostracized from the group in a social species where ostracization basically means death.
Okay.
So we're going to have the appeal to authority, and a lot of people are going to do that. So whatever the AI says is going to be what people say, and I don't see that getting better in the next 5 to 10 years. In fact, I see it probably getting worse. It really depends on whether or not people can figure out that AI isn't always right, and that includes this new, stronger model. I don't see that happening. People are generally not that bright. A person can be bright. People, no.
Okay. And yeah, I think we should close off of here, right? And this has been episode 19. I think one of the questions, the viewers really should ask themselves is that, how should like builders, founders, or investors really prepare for the shift that's probably going to come in the next 5 to 10 years with synthetic media running rampant like this, even as it is right now, right? So I think that is the bigger question that we really need to ask going forward.
Yep. Don't believe everything you read and see.
So everyone, this has been episode 19 of the Crypto and Coffee podcast. I'm your host, Giordano, signing out. Cordell, David.
Thank you very much, everyone. Love having you listen to us. We love doing this, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.